Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
What can you say about Hunter? Besides the fact that he's got to be healthy. Remember, he had the shoulder injury that kind of limited him at, once he got into the end of the season. 17.9, 10.9 last year, and he should be, as usual, a double-double machine. He's got to be able to continue to show the ability to try and shoot the ball from three.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Well, very happy Friday to you. Welcome into the early line as we get ready on this November 8th for what is a loaded slate of games across the sports betting landscape here, including we've got plenty of college football here tonight, college basketball in full effect, some great matchups, not to mention the NBA with a full slate. You mix in a little NHL, and we've got a little something for everybody here. I'm Joe Ranieri, about to be joined by the one and only Ben Stevens, ready to roll because I am pretty sure that Ben has got a 7-7 ready to roll here involving, well, a whole lot of what we saw last night on the Thursday Night Football, which could very well, Ben, be the game of the year so far. And we seem to get that a lot with Cincinnati and Baltimore, don't we? There you go. I'm going to keep going. Ben is not out of the makeup chair yet, but as soon as he is, we will get him here with it. But we should start, of course, with the Ravens and the Bengals last night. And Ben, another one of these AFC North shootouts. Who doesn't love a good AFC North shootout? And it always happens with these two teams.
It is good to join you, Joe Ranieri, on this Football Friday. Technological issues to the side. We are ready to roll for these 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern time. But, Joe, we've gotten 2 game of the years out of this AFC North rivalry between the Ravens and the Bengals. Both a shootout indeed, like you mentioned. What a game it was last night. Perhaps the best game we have seen all season long in the 2024 NFL campaign. The Baltimore Ravens outlast the Cincinnati Bengals 35-34. A chaotic fourth quarter. Teams trading touchdowns in the final 1 minute and 55 seconds of regulation. And then Zach Taylor, Joe Burrow, and Cincinnati elect to go for 2 after getting the score to 35-34. The try as Burrow targets Tanner Hudson on the goal line. Unsuccessful. The Ravens hold on to improve to 7-3. The Bengals now fall to 4-6. There is no doubt, Joe, as we'll react to this game throughout this opening half hour, that Cincinnati is a really good team in the AFC, but after falling in an 0-3 hole, a limited margin of error the rest of the way. The Ravens win. The Bengals cover as a 5.5-point underdog. A total of 52.5 on a short week Thursday night football game. Stood no chance in that fourth and final quarter. It sails over.
Never in doubt. Although there were some questions after the first half. I mean, the first 6 possessions of Baltimore ended up netting just 1 touchdown. And you're going, could Lou Anarumo and this Cincinnati Bengals defense finally have figured it out? And the answer, Ben, at the end of the night was nope, didn't figure it out. No,
they did not. And this Bengals defense has struggled, Joe, in both of the games against Cincinnati this year. Lamar Jackson north of 285 and 4 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, less than 92 yards for the first time in a Ravens win. They've got 7 in 10 games this year. And, of course, Joe Burrow, sensational on the other side. 5 touchdowns and nearly 400 in game number 1 against the Flock. 428 and 4 last night. 264 of the 428. 3 of the 4 touchdowns Burrow tossed to his LSU and Cincinnati teammate, Jamar Chase. A historic night for Jamar Chase that we'll recap in just a little bit. But it is a football Friday, so it's not just Thursday night to kick off the second half in week number 10 of this NFL season. It's everything else you need to know for Sunday. Good news for the San Francisco 49ers. They beat the Dallas Cowboys in week number 8. They head into the bye at an even 504-4, and reinforcements are on the way. Kyle Shanahan telling reporters yesterday that Christian McCaffrey is back. He is back at practice. He should be ready to make his season debut on Sunday in Tampa.
Quote Shanahan, he says he's been awesome these last 2 days, and they expect him to be out there. And 49er Nation also looking forward to getting their first glimpse of Christian McCaffrey. A different team, Ben, no doubt, with him on the field than off the field.
That is for sure, Joe. A 6.5-point spread in favor of San Francisco on the road in Tampa on Sunday against the Bucs. If there is a running back to move a market, it is Christian McCaffrey. Will Levis back at practice, practicing in full for Tennessee. And as we are hearing, he might start on Sunday against the Chargers. My question would be, why?
I've been 100% why, especially against that defense. In all likelihood, a few more turnovers are going to be in Will Levis's future here this week, Ben.
He has 7 interceptions this year, multiple fumbles lost as well. He has thrown a pick in all 5 games he has played. I understand Mason Rudolph isn't the answer, but I'm not sure Will Levis is either. The Chargers a 7.5-point favorite against Tennessee on Sunday. Only 3 games around the association last night, Joe, and we had a lot of heavy home favorites, or at least just heavy favorites. Minnesota was on the road. All the favorites win and rather comfortably cover on a Thursday night. Milwaukee snaps a 6-game skid, their first victory since their season opener. San Antonio as a favorite, a solid team in their 4th consecutive game without Greg Popovich. And then, as we mentioned, the Minnesota Timberwolves blitz the Chicago Bulls in the Windy City in the 4th quarter to win by double digits behind 33 points from Anthony Edwards.
Well, at least Milwaukee found a team that they can beat, Ben. So now if they can only schedule them for 30 more straight games, I think they'll be fine. They'll be right in it.
So Dame and Giannis combined for 65 points. Giannis added in 16 boards. The Utah Jazz remain stuck on 1 win. They are 1-7. The Bucks won by 23 and covered as an 8.5-point home favorite. Joe, elsewhere around the NBA, the Bucks' first win of the year came against the shorthanded Philadelphia 76ers, who this week got Paul George back. That's good. Joel Embiid making his way back more than likely early next week. Also good. But Philadelphia has only 1 win. That's bad. And what's even worse is now Tyrese Maxey is set to be on the sideline for multiple weeks, dealing with a hamstring injury. A disastrous start to this season for the 76ers.
Yeah, I mean, you don't start the season with Embiid or Paul George, but Maxey's a go. Now you get George back, Embiid's still out. Now you lose Maxey, you'll get Embiid back. And when are we going to see the big 3, Ben? How many months before we can actually see that with Philadelphia?
Christmas Day when the NBA season starts. That would be my guess. For the first time, they're all on the floor together. Again, Philadelphia just 1-6, and they only have a single cover in any of those 6 losses this season. Are you ready to be floored? Are you ready to be shocked? The LA Lakers have assigned Bronny James to their G League affiliate when the G League season gets underway either this weekend or early next week.
Who saw that coming? Absolutely nobody saw that coming. But shocker in LA that Bronny wouldn't be good enough to continue to stay on the roster. Shocker.
Listen, I'm just going to say this. Bronny James played in the season opener, the most resounding win of the year for the Lakers against the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Lakers started a perfect 3-0 and now have dropped 4 of their last 5, rather. Maybe Bronny was onto something. Who knows? The Florida Gators making it clear, Joe Ranieri, that Billy Napier, who was on a very hot seat this year in Gainesville and with a disastrous schedule with how difficult it was this year for the Gators, will be back in 2025. Now, there's not many wins to show for it for Florida this year, and it only gets more difficult in this final month of the regular season. But the Gators have covered in 4 straight as an underdog.
Yeah, but they're also now have to do it with a third-string quarterback that transferred in from Yale that can't throw the ball 3 feet. So this should be a lot of fun, Ben. I'm looking forward to seeing the Gator-Texas game this week.
Hold on. DJ Lagway, questionable. Not sure I am buying it. The Gators a 3-touchdown dog in Austin. We get back to the start of Week 10. Baltimore, Cincy, game of the year next.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Tatum has fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump. His release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from 3. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from 3 for the season. But if he's at 42.3%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions once again. His third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Something about 2024 and maybe beyond that. When the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals square off, it is going to be an instant classic. In week number 5 in Cincinnati, a game that went to overtime, and the Ravens win it at the buzzer, or at least a walk-off field goal from Justin Tucker, 41-38. Now we start off week number 10 here in this matchup in the second half of the season between the Ravens and the Bengals, and another instant classic between Cincinnati and Baltimore. 35-34, the victory for the Ravens. Baltimore does not cover as a 5.5-point home favorite. However, the flock does win its 7th game in 10 tries this year. The Bengals do cover. They're a perfect 3-0 against the number. Make that 5-0 against the number on the road this year. But as an underdog, and Joe, a great game last night will be defined by what happened in that fourth quarter. Cincinnati had a 2-touchdown lead late in the third. Baltimore scored 21 straight points. Cincinnati responds with a touchdown late as well. Both sides exchanging scores in the final minute and 55 seconds. Zach Taylor and Cincinnati elect to go for a 2-point conversion. Joe Burrow, who had pretty much been perfect all night, especially when targeting Jamar Chase, could not find Chase, looked to Tanner Hudson. Ball falls incomplete into the turf. Baltimore survives. They outlast Cincinnati in an instant classic, 35-34. The Bengals again do cover as a 5.5-point underdog in a total of 52.5, even on a short week. Thursday night football game in week number 10. Sky's over that number.
It was the only way to play that game, Ben, as far as I was concerned, even though it was the short week, Thursday nights. And, totals over 50 this year haven't exactly been money makers as they've gone woefully under, but not with these two teams. And, there's a lot to unpack with this game. We had what could be a devastating injury to a banged-up secondary and suspect secondary of the Ravens as it is. Hamilton went down with a non-contact injury. That's one storyline, Ben, that the Ravens are going to have to keep an eye on. But to me, the final 23 minutes of this game told us everything we need to know about these two organizations. To have a 21-7 lead and then in the final 23 minutes allow Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense to score on 4 consecutive possessions, erasing that deficit, that tells you everything you need to know. Historic night for Chase and for Burrow and for Cincinnati. The defense for a half looked like they finally figured it out. And then to allow that to happen in the final 23 minutes when you're playing for your season, Ben, this Cincinnati Bengals, unfortunately, are going to have to take a hard look at Zach Taylor and others in this organization because it ain't getting done.
And, Joe, that's a huge component of this, right? The Bengals stay within the 5.5-point number. They cover on the road on a short week against perhaps the best team in the AFC in the Baltimore Ravens. And yet they had a 2-touchdown lead in the final minute of the third quarter, unable to get even a single stop. And I think that certainly factored in to why Zach Taylor decided to go for 2 and try to end it in regulation. I do not fault him. We have had this conversation now a bunch in the last 5 days. We saw it 3 times with a road team on Sunday electing not to go for the 2-point conversion, but just kick the PAT to force overtime. All 3 of those teams on the road lost. You want to add in the Seattle Seahawks, who did the same thing at home, where home field advantage should matter in an extra session. They even got the ball first in overtime and still lost. I don't mind what Cincinnati did at the end. What I do mind, if you are a Bengals backer for the season overall, is a defense that has been woeful this year. And, Joe, we've given Lou Anarumo a lot of credit throughout his time in Cincinnati, incorrectly so. One of the things we give him the most credit for is making those adjustments at the half through the game to be a better and more stout defense in the second half. Quite the opposite last night against Lamar Jackson. But when these two quarterbacks face off, the numbers have been outrageous. I mean outrageous this year. Joe Burrow threw for nearly 400 yards and 5 touchdowns in the first meeting. Nearly 350 and 4 touchdowns from Lamar Jackson in that first meeting in Cincy as well. They both basically replicate how efficient and impressive the performances were last night. Joe Burrow throwing for 428 yards and 4 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson throwing for 290, adding 33 yards rather on the ground, utilizing his legs as well, and 4 touchdowns. Joe, I wasn't bold enough to bet the over of 52.5 just because it was a short week, but I did expect offense. So I parlayed both quarterbacks over their passing touchdowns prop of 1.5, and both had juice on the over. It was never in doubt last night. A masterful performance, from both QBs. It's a shame that one team had to lose, and it's a shame that Cincinnati's defense did not come through when the offense was outstanding against the flock.
And it's a shame, Ben, that here we are the day after having to talk about controversy with the refs at the end of the game, where what could have been for the Cincinnati Bengals, not to mention, the Ravens, 10, 11 penalties for over 80 yards in that game last night. And it was the fact that they were down 21-7 wasn't a shock. The fact that with all of that undisciplined and all of those penalties, that they were able to do that in the final 23 minutes puts Lamar Jackson back in the conversation for MVP and puts the Ravens squarely at the top of the futures board.
No doubt about it, Joe. And it was the first time in a win that Derrick Henry had not rushed for at least 92 yards. He did score yet again. He was minus 260 to hit Pater. He has scored in every single game this season. But the offensive star last night was on the other side. 428 passing yards for Joe Burrow, 264 of them to Jamar Chase. How the Ravens secondary continued to lose this guy is beyond me, especially often, Joe, when the pocket would break down, Burrow would break, contain, and then find a wide open Jamar Chase. And if you get him the football in space, you are going to be chasing a man whose last name is exactly that. 3 touchdowns of the 4 to Chase last night. The only player in NFL history to have 2 games of at least 250 yards and multiple receiving touchdowns in a career. Jamar Chase has done it in 3.5 NFL seasons. Plenty more for Thursday now.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So, look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the that's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Tatum has fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump. His release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from 3. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from 3 for the season. But if he's at 42.3%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions. Once again. His third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
A high-scoring affair, an instant classic, and perhaps the best NFL game so far in 2024 to start week number 10 in the second half of this NFL regular season. Again, Baltimore victorious 35-31 34. Cincinnati electing to go for a 2-point conversion to try to win the football game in the final half minute of regulation. The ball was incomplete off the right arm of Joe Burrow. The Bengals cover as a 5.5-point underdog. And, Joe, when you talk offense, when you see a game on a short week Thursday night football game that ends with 69 nice combined points to sky well over a total of 52.5, that was already the highest over-under we had seen for a short week Thursday night game in nearly 3 seasons. You know, the offensive performances with how stacked both offenses are going to light up the box score and potentially your prop board. Let's go back to Jamar Chase. 11 grabs last night for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns. I said it very quickly right before we hit that commercial break. Jamar Chase, now in his 4th NFL season, about 3.5 NFL years, is already the first player in NFL history to have multiple games in a career. Again, it's just been about 3.5 seasons, but multiple games in a career with more than 250 receiving yards and multiple receiving scores. 264 and 3 touchdowns last night. The Ravens had 0 answer. And, Joe, we're going to do our updated outlook here for both of these teams in a moment. We'll focus a ton on the Bengals, what it means for their playoff chances after starting in the 0-3 hole. But if you're a Ravens believer and backer in an AFC championship price, a Super Bowl contention number, you have to be gravely concerned about a secondary that entered last night as the worst in the NFL and got exposed for 428 and 4 touchdowns from Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
You mentioned Chase having unbelievable historic night. There was another record broken last night where there is only 2 instances in the NFL history, Ben, in which a quarterback had 30 or more completions, 300 or more passing yards, 4 or more TDs, multiple 40 or more yard TD passes, no more than 1 interception. Yeah, that was Joe Burrow last night. And, Joe Burrow in week 5 against the Ravens. So it's Joe Burrow twice now has set that record and can't beat the darn Ravens here. But I think it just goes to show you how dangerous this Ravens team truly is, because even when they don't have their fastball, Ben, and they're trailing, they're not trailing for very long. We can say what we want about that secondary. What they did last night for a guy that was having an epic night is just nothing short of pretty darn impressive here, folks. This is what we expect from Kansas City, but we're getting it from Baltimore.
And Baltimore playing with a lead at times has been more precarious than the Ravens trailing. The 5th time this year for Baltimore as a 5.5-point favorite or more. They're just 2-3 against the number and only 3-2 straight up because of those 2 losses as more than a touchdown favorite against the Raiders in week 2 and the Browns now 3 weeks ago. Because the Steelers have only played 8 games, they were on the bye last week. They are 6-2. The Steelers still a better win percentage atop the AFC North, but the Ravens have 1 more win, albeit 1 more loss as well. The Ravens a hefty favorite, as you saw, to win the division at minus 340. And frankly, Joe, that feels correct, right? The Ravens should be in that pole position despite the standings at this moment from the projected odds component in front of Pittsburgh. The Steelers, a road underdog this week against the Commanders, although I think Pittsburgh might be in a pretty good spot. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But, Joe, I think you made a great point in the starting of our recap of this game. The Bengals are going to look back at this one, not as an instant classic, not as a great game, not as, oh boy, we covered and gave the Ravens everything they could handle, but a blown opportunity to save their season, or at least put it right back on track to get to an even 500. They led by 2 touchdowns in the closing moments of the 3rd quarter and then allowed Baltimore and Lamar Jackson to score 21 unanswered points. Now, there is no make playoff price available on FanDuel right now. It was minus 114 entering Thursday Night Football to start off Week 10. Joe, falling to 4-6, the season is not over because of what the Bengals have the rest of the way, but it will be looked back on last night as a squandered opportunity in a marquee matchup on the road in the Charm City.
Especially, Ben, I mean, they're going to look back on this season and remember these 2 Ravens games that could have changed and altered their season for good. 2 games they should have won.
There's no doubt about that. And we'll look at where the Bengals factor into the AFC playoff picture at this moment. and where the Ravens are as well. It's November. In the Hunt graphics come your way up next on this Football Friday.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So, look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have it. Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Tatum has fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump. His release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from three. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from three for the season. But if he's at 42.3%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions once again. His third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The second half of the 2024 NFL season now officially underway, with Week 10 kicking off last night in an instant classic in the Charm City between the Ravens and the Bengals. So here's where the AFC playoff picture stands entering this second half, with everybody getting in the fold on Sunday. The Chiefs are the only undefeated team left, and not just the AFC, but the entirety of the NFL at a perfect 8-0. That is going to mean something for the number 1 overall seed for Kansas City, even if they don't stay unbeaten all that much longer. The Bills in the top spot in the AFC East. The Steelers still in the top spot in the AFC North. We'll talk about the Ravens in a second. And the Texans are the only team with a winning record in the porous AFC South. The Ravens are the top wild card team as of this moment, but perhaps the best team in the AFC. The Chargers playing Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman football, 2 games above 500. The Broncos got blasted by the Ravens last week in the Charm City, more than a touchdown underdog in Arrowhead against the Chiefs this week. But, Joe, that tells part of the picture. The Colts are trying to figure it out with Joe Flacco. Not a great result on Sunday night in Minneapolis. They fall below 500. The Bengals on an 0-3 haul had won 4 of their last 6 entering last night. Now make that 4 of their last 7. They're 2 games below 500 at the 10-game mark of their season. A lot of ground to be made up for Cincinnati. But, Joe, when you look at the wild card standings, there's not all that many teams above 500 as we expected in the AFC. It is not the gauntlet of a conference where we thought 10 wins, bare minimum, would have to be had to earn you a wild card berth. There's 7 teams above 500, and 2 of the 3 wild card spots, no disrespect, are the Chargers and the Broncos. They're not world beaters right now. It's not Aaron Rodgers in the Jets. It's not the Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa. It's not Trevor Lawrence and a resurgent Jacksonville team. It's not a Cleveland team that has talent and yet, of course, is struggling to find consistent quarterback play. So despite a dreadful loss, and one the Bengals will look back on once again and say, that wasn't we were competitive, we covered the number. No, it's going to be a squandered opportunity. Cincy is still not out of it with just 7 games left to play in their season.
And Ben, you nailed it there, because the Bengals have only themselves to blame here. They did everything right through 3 quarters to not only put themselves in a position to win that game, Ben, but to run away with it. Like, that game should not have even been close. Yeah. And you can thank that Chase Brown fumble, which is really what kind of catapulted and started the momentum swing towards the Ravens. You had a bunch of missed tackles on the Wallace 84-yard touchdown. All of these self-inflicted wounds for a team that is trying to overcome an 0-3 start, 0-4 start, whatever it was. You just can't afford to do that here in week 10 of the NFL season, which is why they'll be on the outside looking in.
Joe, when you look at Cincinnati, and if the Bengals do miss out on the postseason, of course, since the turn of the millennium, that's 2000, now nearly 2.5 decades ago, only one team has started 0-3 and ended up in the playoffs. It was the 2017 Houston Texans. The Bengals were trying to undo all of that history and historic trends that would say they would not be a playoff team only 3 weeks into the year. There is still hope. But if Cincinnati does miss out, they'll look back on both of these Baltimore games. Sure, they should look back on the dreadful loss against the Patriots or being a home favorite against the Eagles and getting blown out by 20 points. But they'll look back on these divisional duels and say, wow, we should have had both of those, and it would have changed the trajectory of their season. In the first instant classic in Week 5, the Bengals had a 3-point lead in the final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. Joe Burrow, who had thrown 5 touchdown passes and nearly 350 yards at that point, driving the Bengals into Ravens territory to ice the game, maybe add on another score, throws his only pick of the game. Baltimore then takes it down the field, and Justin Tucker ties it to send it into overtime. A botched snap on a potential Bengals field goal in OT that could have at least put them in front. And then, of course, it was Derrick Henry and Justin Tucker to win it later in that OT. That's Week 5. 5 weeks later, the Bengals are up 21-7. And the young second-year pro, Chase Brown, who did score, went well over his receiving yards prop, as I thought might be the case last night. Coughs up the fumble in Baltimore territory. They scored just a couple of plays later with about 4 minutes left in the third quarter. And thus, they found their way back into that football game. And when the Bengals needed a stop, in fact, the defense regressed and allowed guys like Mark Andrews to be wide open in the middle of the field. And Justin Tucker even missed the PAT last night. And that's why, Joe, again, I don't fault Zach Taylor for going for 2, because the defense showed nothing. We saw 4 consecutive possessions between these two teams result in a touchdown to end out regulation. It's just the Bengals came up short on the 2-point try that would have won them the game with just under half a minute left.
You've also now got a Bengals team that is sitting, 4-6, right, with record-breaking offensive numbers. And here's the number that is really going to get people. The Bengals are now 0-5 this year in games decided by 6 points or less. 0-5, Ben. You can't make the playoffs or be considered contenders if you can't win the close games, and they have yet to win a game decided by 1 score.
And they're 5-0 against the number on the road this year. They're awful at home. They're 3-2 straight up. 2 outright losses by a point as a 5.5-point underdog in both, against KC in Week 2, last night against Baltimore. Joe Burrow now 17-3 against the number as an underdog of 3 points or more in his NFL career. Since he has gone over in 7 of 10 games, that defense struggling. The Ravens defense also not great. They're elite against the run. They're the best rushing defense in the NFL, but the worst passing defense, and might have lost Kyle Hamilton at least for a few weeks with that non-contact ankle injury that sidelined him at the end of the opening half. The Ravens have gone over now in 9 of 10 games this year. So we talked about Cincinnati again. No make playoff price on the board. It was minus 115 entering last night. Updated win total for the Bengals, though, 8.5. Even juice on both sides at minus 110. Cincy would have to win 5 of its final 7 to go over 8.5 Not even sure that's going to be enough to make the playoffs, but it does give Cincinnati a little bit of life. Joe, I don't believe the Bengals will be a true underdog the remainder of this year, more than 2-3 points. The Bengals will have their chances. Now let's go to the Ravens. Because, Joe, there's a conversation around Baltimore this year, incorrectly so, that the Chiefs are the only undefeated team in the NFL, of course, in the AFC, but perhaps is the Flock the best-looking team in the AFC? What say you to that conversation?
Currently, I would say this, and they continue to show us that they are the most dangerous team in the AFC. And they, too, have this ability here to never be down when you're out. You nailed it, right? Because the Ravens' problems seem to happen when they're playing from in front against some weaker teams. But when the chips are down and their backs are against the wall, they've shown you the moxie. They've shown you the ability to be able to go, okay, enough is enough. One fumble, one recovery was enough to flip a switch for this Ravens team. That's a mark of a championship team, Ben. When you had them on the ground, you couldn't finish them. And guess what? You let them up, and then they finished you. And that's who the Ravens are this year.
The Flock only $1.05 behind Kansas City, as you saw there, to win the AFC championship. I do believe, Joe, that when all is said and done, the Ravens, as the odds project at minus 340, will win the AFC North, host at least one, if not two, playoff games. I do believe Kansas City has that advantage for the number one overall seed, not just being the only unbeaten team left, but, of course, the direct head-to-head tiebreaker against Baltimore. The Ravens are going to have their opportunities. There's no doubt about it. To cash that plus 290 number and flip the script on the narrative that is Lamar Jackson's playoff success, which is limited just 2-4, we'll see if they're able to do so. I'm a little bit concerned about that defense, if I'm being honest. Perhaps it's not the Ravens or the Chiefs that's the best team in the NFL. It might be the Detroit Lions. Next.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So, look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Tatum has fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump. His release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from three. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from three for the season. But if he's at 42.3%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions once again. His third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Week number 10 in the second half of this season starts with an instant classic between Baltimore and Cincinnati. And the Sunday slate more than likely will end with an instant classic as well. Sunday Night Football is set to be an absolute banger and a marquee matchup in H-Town. The Texans, the top team in the AFC South, hosting perhaps the best team in the National Football League, the top team in the NFC North, the top team in the conference as a whole, the 7-1 Detroit Lions. To Houston we go on Sunday night. The Lions, Joe, who have been the best cover team in the National Football League this season, last season, all 3.5 years with Dan Campbell, are laying a number on the road for Sunday Night Football. 3.5-point spread in favor of Detroit. Total stands at 48 and a hook. What can we expect from Sunday Night Football in Houston?
Well, we better get a handle on what's going on with Nico Collins and Will Anderson, who both missed practice yesterday, Ben. So is one going to play? Is not going to? Are neither playing? Because that's a pretty big piece to what Houston is trying to do. But I also think we understand that the Houston Texans are a different team at home than they have been on the road. Certainly, C.J. Stroud has been a different quarterback at home than he has been on the road. So if Nico can't get back, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, Robert Woods, okay, is that going to go up toe-to-toe with what Detroit's going to bring to the table? I don't know. I think it's a overvaluing spot all year with the Texans. I don't think they're as good as everyone thinks they are. And I think the Lions are just a team that if they are not at the top of their game and have all their best players available, which it looks like they won't, this could get ugly, Ben, in a big, big way.
And, Joe, we saw that to an extent, right? Last time we saw the Houston Texans a week ago, yesterday, short week Thursday night game on the road, sure, against the New York Jets. But the Texans entered that game basically as a slight underdog, expected to keep pace with New York. They did in the opening half. By the time we reached the second half, they had no chance. The defense broke down against Aaron Rodgers in the Jets' passing attack, and that offense looked rather lifeless. Now, Joe Mixon has been sensational this year, a great offseason acquisition for Houston. Basically, every time he has been healthy, remained in a full game, he has had 100 scrimmage yards. He's probably the best offensive piece. We have not seen Nico Collins at practice yet for the Texans. Houston's in a fine spot. They're 6-3. They're above 500. They're only 3-5-1, though, against the spread this year. They've only been an underdog now twice this season after being a dog a ton early on last year with C.J. Stroud as a rookie and, of course, D'Amico Ryans in his rookie season as a head coach. But, Joe, anybody to stand in the way of the Detroit Lions right now might be facing an uphill battle. The Lions are 7-1. They have covered in all 7 games. They have been an underdog in they've been a favorite rather in 7 of the 8 games they have played this year. They are 44-18 now against the number with Dan Campbell as the head man in the Motor City. That is a cover percentage of 71%. No other team in the NFL, none of the 31 other organizations are even covering in 61% or more of their games, and the Lions are 10 percentage points above that at 71%. Joe, there's a conversation around Detroit. Are they the best team in the National Football League? They have the second best price to win a Super Bowl. I think they might put that on display on Sunday night. Because as a road favorite of more than a field goal, even against the short-handed Texans, if Detroit goes out there and covers once again, there will be little doubt.
Yeah, well, there shouldn't be any doubt anyway. I mean, those numbers you just rattled off, man, are just absolutely unbelievable. And they're already, we know this year, Ben, those numbers aren't shocking the public. The public backs Detroit a lot. In fact, I believe already this year, 4-0 against the number when the public is all in on them. 14-2 when the public is in on them over the last 2 seasons. I mean, you look at it and you go, oh, it's a public dog. We don't want to go that. They're on the road. Yeah, no, I don't think so. All the Lions do is cover when the public backs them. So this is exactly the kind of pick that normally, Ben, if it was any other team, we'd be like, can't back them on the road as a favorite. Well, you can back Detroit on the road as a favorite and sleep well at night knowing there's a good chance it's going to cash for you.
Again, the NFC North still a highly competitive division, but Detroit sits in first and with the best price at minus 210. The Vikings are 6-2. The Packers, who the Lions beat last week, are 6-3, but still right around that conversation. Joe, when you look at the Lions, a couple of weeks ago we saw them put up 52 points, and Jared Goff had 85 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Jared Goff's efficiency, though, in the last few weeks has been otherworldly. I believe I looked this up. I'll double check on them. 12 incompletions, I think, in total in the last 4 to 5 weeks. It has been insane. And if the Texans aren't doing much offensively, a lot of the pressure falls on the defense. How are you going to look at the primetime props for Sunday Night Football? We see Goff at 225 on a hook right now. C.J. Stroud on the other side, who might be without a lot of his key offensive targets, Steph Diggs and Nico Collins at 230 at a hook.
Yeah, this was almost made my list, Ben, later for alternate lines here, and I went with Jared Goff over 1.5 touchdown passes, given the fact that, I don't know, the Texans defense has allowed 19 passing touchdowns already this year, which is the most in the NFL, and Goff's already gone over that in 5 of his last 6. Yeah. So, and that's despite the fact they're not even asking them to throw games late because they've already blown the game wide open. So I would expect big games from guys like Jared Goff and Amon St. Brown in this one.
Yeah, for sure, Joe. And when you look at this Houston Texans offense, again, Joe Mixon, in all 5 fully healthy games this year, at least 106 scrimmage yards. Should be able to get over that number of 82.5. But C.J. Stroud has had 2 of his worst career performances in the last 3 weeks. His least passing yards in a game, 86, 3 weeks ago against the Packers. Last week, his worst career completion percentage, 11 of 30 against the New York Jets. And he was sacked 8 times. And the Lions added Zadarius Smith earlier this week at the deadline. Plenty more of a Sunday slate preview next.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have it. Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Tatum has fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump. His release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from 3. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from 3 for the season. But if he's at 42.3%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions once again. His third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
It's a football Friday on the early line on SportsGrid. We get you set for the start of the second half of this 2024 NFL season. It started last night in Baltimore. We hope those kind of games continue the whole second half of this season, but certainly on Sunday. The Baltimore Ravens, despite being 7-3, are not in the top spot in the AFC North standings. That is currently occupied by the Pittsburgh Steelers, a perfect 2-0, both straight up and against the number, with Russell Wilson as their starting quarterback, 6-2 straight up this season. On the bye last week, and now they head to Landover to take on the Washington Commanders, who, oh, by the way, are even better record-wise than that of Pittsburgh. 7-2 is the mark for Washington as we get ready for Sunday afternoon. The Commanders a 2.5-point home favorite, total at 44 and a hook. Joe, how do you start your breakdown of this game between the Commanders and the Steelers?
Yeah, well, I started it, Ben, by immediately betting the over, which is going to go contrarian to what the public is going to want here, because the public's going to look at this Pittsburgh team coming off a bye. Pittsburgh on the road has been extremely good to the under. Tomlin tends to be a little bit more conservative on the road than he is at home. But the reality is they have completely, Pittsburgh, remade their passing attack here. Russell Wilson, you make the trade for Mike Williams. You've got a much more balanced offense now. It's not going to be just run. So on that side, I think against this Washington defense, they're going to have success, not just running the ball, but Russell's going to have success in taking shots down the field against this secondary, a very young secondary, which is why they made the trade for Lattimore. And when you look at Washington, Brian Robinson Jr. should be back, which is going to help them. Do we really need, Pittsburgh, bless them, they can only play the teams on their schedule. But, Ben, they have played, 6 straight offenses that are terrible passing the ball. That is not going to be the case here in Washington. I mean, the only team that even came close to having a heartbeat throwing the ball was Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, but that was early in the seasons, and Kirk Cousins couldn't move. So I don't see that happening here. I don't think they're going to contain Daniels. I think they're going to have success moving the ball. I think this is a shootout way more than it's going to be a rock fight in this game.
Joe, wouldn't you like to know that Pittsburgh is seeing their largest total of the year at 44 and a hook? Yes, a total of 44 and a half is the largest number for one of the two teams in this game, not necessarily for the Commanders, who have played multiple games with a total north of 50. Washington over in 6 of 9 games this year, 5 of their last 7, including last week against the Giants, who are not necessarily offensive juggernauts by any means. The Steelers over in 3 straight games. In fact, they have gone over in both of the games that Russell Wilson has started. Najee Harris has hit the century mark in all 3 of these consecutive overs as well. Joe, I actually thought the rushing attack might take a step back, inserting Russ as the starter and taking out Justin Fields. In fact, it has been quite the opposite. And these are two teams that are performing so much higher than even expectation. We know the Steelers each and every year, right? It's year number 18 under Mike Tomlin. It's not a surprise to see the Steelers above 500 by any means. But here is Pittsburgh at 8-2 at the midway point of the season in the top spot of the AFC North. Drastic market movement on their prices from where they were at the beginning of the season. 25-1 to win the AFC, now 16-1. They had the longest price to win the AFC North. They are not the favorites, but they are currently in first. The Commanders, though, even more drastic movement. Joe, we're almost getting spoiled in the NFL right now with these rookie quarterbacks drafted second overall, so exceeding expectation. They are going to lead their team to the playoffs. Washington has already built that cushion. And yes, they have to play Philadelphia twice in their final 8 games of this season, their final 7 after this week against the Steelers. I still believe the Eagles, who are the favorites to win the NFC East, are going to do that. But, Joe, outside of that, sure, the Commanders get Dallas twice. That probably looked difficult earlier in the year, not so much anymore. And then a couple of games against the NFC South. I believe the Commanders are a playoff team when all is said and done, probably with very little doubt.
Well, and they think they're a playoff team as well, Ben. I mean, you don't have to look much further than what they did by going to get Lattimore. So this is a team that is pushed all in on the 7-2 start to the season. and they've got all the teams that they need to beat in front of them. So kudos to the Commanders. Can't wait to see how it works out.
You can see some props for the quarterbacks as well. Russell Wilson, in his 2 starts for the Steelers, at least 264 passing yards. His number this week, 216 and a hook. Hour number 2 comes your way next.